Hey everyone, welcome to today's special call. I'm going to go ahead and get our intro started. And when Gina arrives, she will raise her hand. You all are in for a treat. I have been so excited about this call. We are very lucky to have financial expert Gina Knox here, who is going to give us an overview. And I wanted to start with a quick introduction. She's my favorite money financial person I've ever heard or listened to. She's got a really fresh take and she helps people create $100,000 in her 12-month program, Six Figure Saver. What? Right? This is so fantastic. I think there's a trend in physicians right now to do real estate and expert witness, and none of that is passive income. Y'all, bed bugs, evicting tenants, pipes busting. This is not passive income. And in Next Level Freedom, we really are. How do we ethically come back to part-time hours and protect our salary? Working with Gina Knox, hearing her message is part of that. So we're really glad to have her here. Over her career, she has helped her clients save over $6 million dollars in less than 3 years. She's a Mexican mom. We love supporting women of color here, an art school grad, designer, hobby, potter, world traveler, and money nerd. I will be here and I will have her contact information in the chat so you can follow up and work with her and follow her. Before I hand it over, I just wanted to say that we are going to be repurposing the audio of this call for the public podcast. And if Gina Knox's team is okay with it, the video of the call for the YouTube channel. You won't be on screen unless you raise your hand. You consent to be on screen. So you can go ahead and sit back, do whatever you're doing, and listen. If you want to contribute or ask questions, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. You can put that into the Q&A box anonymously. If you want to be perfectly anonymous, you can also raise your hand for talking with Gina Knox when we get to the Q&A section. Let's see, Gina is here. All right, Gina, are you ready to be brought on? I have a list of people just for the folks here who joined on the January launch. Shweta, Gabriella, B, and Sarah are on the list, the top people who ask questions or first in line to ask questions, but if they don't have any questions or anyone else wants to ask, feel free. And I also have a list of submitted questions. So we have a lot to get going. I'm so excited. Let's do it.
All right,
Perfect.
let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Who am I? My name is Gina Knox. People call me lovingly Money's mom. I help entrepreneurs leverage their businesses and build personal wealth, right? By building personal savings, paying themselves more, and then investing profit into wealth portfolios that help work for them. I know not everyone here is necessarily an entrepreneur, but all of this stuff still applies regardless of how you earn income. I've helped my clients collectively build portfolios that are currently valued at over $25 million. This is literally hot off the press as of today. I just pulled the numbers. And this is not, thousands of clients. This is less than 100 people in this number. If all of them collectively stopped contributing to their wealth portfolios today, the group will be worth over $500 million in the next 30 years. Again, if they all stopped contributing, this is the power of passive income, right? It's truly passive. It grows without them, which is just so, so exciting. But my interest in money originated from my family. My mom, right here, this is a photo of her. She is the daughter of Mexican immigrants, and she was always taught, that good immigrant mentality: pay cash, don't use credit, save for a rainy day, invest in your education above all else because the government can't take your brain away from you, right? Like very, very immigrant mentality. And my dad, on the other hand, who is right here, he was a hippie flower child in the 70s. He grew up the son of a college professor and a politician. And they taught him pay yourself first, don't live beyond your means, build wealth outside of a job, because both of my grandparents here were children of the Great Depression and very much affected by the Great Depression. So they were very conscious of never be reliant on a job, right? But in my heart, I'm a daddy's girl. I really am a daddy's girl. My dad taught me everything that I know about money. Absolutely. But at the age of 46, he was diagnosed with cancer. I know we might have a lot of physicians in the room. If y'all are curious, he had adenoid cystic carcinoma, which is very, very rare cancer. And I always say, truly, his financial skills extended his life. His financial skills extended his life, not only because of the amazing care he was able to afford, but because of the peace of mind that he was able to leave this earth with, knowing that everyone was taken care of. It's very important to know that my dad absolutely loved his job. He loved his job. He never wanted to retire. He was a public finance lawyer. He worked at the same firm from the time he was a summer associate still in law school. And then he stayed with that firm all the way through retirement. He went into remission after his first round of radiation and was in remission for about 10 years. But we always knew that the cancer was going to come back. It's a very slow growing cancer, but it is fatal. And it did come back 10 years later. He fought it for another 5 or so years. And then he felt that because of the amount of pain medication that he was on and the amount of brain fog he was experiencing, he felt he could no longer ethically practice law. So he stepped down from his position, the position where he was being groomed to take over the department, his entire department. And he retired early. He retired at the age of 60. And unfortunately, in February 2021, he did pass away after 18 years battling this cancer. And I cannot stress that in the worst circumstance, he had the most beautiful death. He was at home. We had in-home care. This is a photo of him the Thanksgiving before. This was a home that he built in his dream location. He didn't have to leave his house. We were all there with him. And beyond that, nothing bad financially happened to us. The mortgage still got paid. My mom, who was a stay-at-home mom her whole career since she was 28 years old, didn't have to go back into the workforce. And as much as it was a terrible time for our family, we just got to focus on being with him, which is the absolute biggest gift. So I always start this presentation by dedicating it to my dad because he taught me everything I know about money, about building wealth. And then he left us with such a huge legacy. And I know that so many people do not have this kind of legacy in their families of a positive financial role model. And so I really view it as my work is a huge extension of his legacy. And I want to honor that by sharing it with as many people as possible. So I always start by saying, thank you, Dad. Thank you for teaching me everything. And really modeling what a healthy relationship with money looks like. Okay, so enough about me, enough of my family. Let's talk about you guys. Here's the number one thing, the number one thought that my dad taught me to reframe in order to build wealth, right? In order to build true lasting wealth outside of our careers. You're not hitting your wealth goals because you're thinking like a worker. You're thinking like a laborer, like someone who works. This shows up in 4 clear ways. Number 1, you feel like it's all on you, right? It's all on you. You got to provide, you got to earn the income. If you stop working, the money stops, right? If you stop, the money stops, and that's kind of terrifying in its own right. And then that means that you're terrified to burn out because burnout is just this big, scary, looming thing that a lot of us experience. And if you are the worker, if you're the laborer, if you're the breadwinner, you can't afford to burn out. And because of that, you're afraid of life happening, right? Illnesses or, different things, not just with yourself, with your family, any kind of big life circumstance that takes you out of work is a threat to your financial well-being. So what we need to do is we need to go from thinking like a worker to thinking like a wealth builder. Okay. 4 things happen when we become a wealth builder now instead of continuing to operate like workers forever. Okay. Number 1, your income is no longer tied to your time, your work, or even your life. And I think that part is really important for those of us who have family members or dependents who are dependent on our income and dependent on our labor. Number two, it's not all on you anymore. It's all on your assets, right? Your assets become an entity in and of themselves that get to take care of things for you in your life and beyond your life. Number three, you've created the ultimate form of financial security, right? No other form of financial security will really take over the fact that you don't have to work to earn an income anymore. And number four, life just becomes more joyful, right? Life becomes more joyful because you're excited to see what happens next. You're not bracing for what happens next. And even in the worst scenarios, like I mentioned, right? Even when loved ones die or when there's big family events, that there's still joy to be found in that when money is not the number one concern top of mind. So how do we literally, like physically, literally live off the stock market? Some of you may know this, some of you may not. I like to go over it anyways. Okay. So I am the CEO of my company. And if you guys own businesses or if you own your own practices or whatever, you own 100% of your company, right? Or think about the small business down the road. They own 100% of their company. So when the business grows, it directly benefits you, right? When my business grows, it directly benefits me. I can understand that. When you buy a stock, all you're literally doing is buying a portion of somebody else's business. That's all that a stock is. It's a little tiny portion of someone else's business. So when I go out and I buy a share of Apple Computers, for example, I now own a very, very tiny percentage of Apple Computers, which is a good thing because when, September rolls around and they have their next iPhone launch and they make a ton of money, as a partial owner of the company, I'm going to benefit from that, right? That's all that stocks are. So, as a shareholder, I like to imagine, and a CEO myself of my own company, right? I like to imagine all the CEOs across the country and the world who are working just as hard for their businesses as I am working for mine, right? I have this little army of CEOs and employees and leaders around the world who are working to grow their companies just like I'm working to grow my company. And when those businesses succeed and grow, my portfolio grows, right? Because I have a portion of a company that's doing well. And inevitably, when some of those companies fail, which they will, I don't lose all my money because I don't have all my money in one basket, right? I have shares of thousands of other companies who were doing just as well to make up the difference for the ones who failed. When I started investing in 2017, my first year, I earned less than $1,000 in growth, right? So I earned $721.09 in my first, not full calendar year, because I started in February 2017. But now, 7 years later, my portfolio is generating a full-time salary over the course of a year. You can see that it grew. Actually, this is even out of date. I need to update this. 74,000 in this 1 year period, which is it may not be a full-time salary to everyone. I certainly spend more than that. I'm a bougie spender, but man, could I survive off 74,000? Yes, I absolutely could. I could literally pay myself a monthly salary from my portfolio and not run out of money for over 13 years. So my portfolio is growing, meaning the other companies that I'm invested in are growing and making income and generating income. And if I decided I want to bow out for a while, or if I got sick or my daughter got sick or anything happened, I could literally survive off my portfolio for 13 and a quarter years, which, is not fully retired by any means, but it sure as hell is a really nice cushion. So, this is possible when we start to begin to build wealth now as we are instead of waiting for some, next big thing. Okay. So, we're going to go over the 3 mistakes that people make when trying to build passive income portfolios. All right. Mistake number 1, you never start. You never start. Here's kind of the cycle that I see a lot of people get stuck in. You don't know what you don't know. You're confused about the stock market. Sales, if you're an entrepreneur, sales feels safe and in control. If you're not an entrepreneur, just like continuing to earn money and have a job and work more hours, that feels like what I can control. So I just tell myself, well, I just need to earn more first, right? I just need to earn more first. And then I continue to not know what I don't know. I continue to be confused. I continue to wait and I continue to just focus on earning more money, right? Being a worker. But the thing is, your business grows or maybe your career grows, but your financial security doesn't, right? At the end of the day, if you're bringing in all this money and using it and then there's actually not money left that's building a wealth portfolio on the side, your financial security outside of your labor is not growing. So, Mariela is in her 40s. I want to share with you this case study. She's a single mom in San Francisco, so high cost of living area. She's a breadwinner, and she was forced to completely start over after divorce. She was living in London. Her husband wanted a divorce. She didn't. She ended up moving back home. And when she joined my mastermind, which is called Seven Figure Wealth, she was transitioning her business model entirely. She was going through what I call a profit squeeze, and she was scared of letting go of her cash savings, right? She looked at her cash and she was like, that is my security. I can't just let go of my cash savings. She really struggled with the coaching that I gave her, which was moving her cash savings into investments because cash felt safe, right? Especially after all of that turmoil of getting a divorce and moving cross country and starting over and starting a business and then changing the business, cash felt safe. She said, what if something happens and I really need the money? I have a daughter. That's all on me. I can't just like risk things. I don't want to pay the penalty if I want to take it out early, right? Like a lot of this misconception around, what if I lock up my money and I don't have access to it anymore? So all we did was fill her knowledge gaps. In 6 months, Mariela grew her wealth portfolio by nearly $40,000, over $39,000. She set up a trust fund for her daughter that is on track to scale to $7 million automatically, just her daughter's portfolio. Because we could talk about this later, kids are very cheap to make millionaires. And she's so much closer to being financially independent from her business, i.e., financially independent from her labor, right? Her portfolio is on track to generate an additional $400,000 completely passively with zero further contributions. She said, this week, this inspired me to share how being coached last week on moving the bulk of my savings into my taxable brokerage, my investment portfolio went up by over $1,500 in the last 7 days. I know that's not indicative of how well it'll do in the long run, but that switched something in my brain where I now have the belief I am someone with investment accounts and my money is making money. And that's helping me relieve a bit of the financial pressure I'm putting on my business, right? You can see her accounts growing passively without her doing any labor. She said, this is the first time in my life I can finally say I have investments. To see that my investments made 1,500 just shifted something in my brain. I'm proud of myself, yet I'm also grappling with a little bit of the grief and anger over not knowing any of this or being taught this before. Very, very common. So here's the thing. Not knowing is not the problem. Never starting is. Okay? All right, mistake number 2. I need to pay off debt first. Any of you guys have debt in the room? I know most of the people that I work with have debt in some form or another, but the mistake is I need to pay off my debt first. The reality is that your portfolio can pay off your debt for you, right? It is ingrained in us to make paying off debt the number one financial priority in our lives, right? There's so much social pressure, if not familial pressure, to pay off debt and get out of debt. And debt is the worst thing and don't go into debt, right? So what do? We throw all our extra money towards paying it down as quickly as possible. So this is the cycle that I see happening, right? You have debt. You sell as much as you can to pay it down, or maybe in your case, you earn as much as you can, right? You work as much as you can to try and pay it down. You manage to pay it down. Congratulations, you're paying it down. And then at the end of it all, you have zero debt, but you still need to earn more because technically you're at zero now, right? It's like walking down a staircase, The thing is that money, that extra money, could be used to create a wealth portfolio that pays off your debt for you and then continues to earn more money for you forever, right? Think about instead of walking downstairs, we're going to walk upstairs. It looks like this. You have debt. You earn as much as possible so you can build a portfolio. You pay off debt using the portfolio's growth. And now at the end, you have zero debt and you have a portfolio. Right? You have wealth options. You have not zero, but you actually have a substantial amount there growing, continuing to grow without you having to work. When you consistently put your debt first above all else, you'll never build wealth. Here's the thing, like, so in today's day and age, there is so much debt. There's just so much debt. There's so many reasons we use debt. There's so many times we're going to go into debt. And what I hate to see is people waiting to be debt free before they build wealth, because the number one asset you have in terms of building wealth is time in the market. So when we tell ourselves I'll build wealth after I pay off debt, we it may be too late. We may have lost decades of growth. And so I really, really warn people, do not put debt first. It's not to say debt's not important to pay off, but it's just to say it's not more important than building a wealth portfolio that will have income without your labor, right? Okay. So when Geneva joined Seven Figure Wealth, she had 5 figures of credit card debt. She was the breadwinner with a young toddler. Her husband had lost his job during COVID. She not only was the breadwinner, but she was a new business owner. So she was kind of figuring out her business in all of this. She had a business that was less than 2 years old, and she didn't have a huge owner's pay. So she didn't have a huge income. All right. So, like, triple whammy here: lots of debt, breadwinner, low income. She really struggled with the coaching that I gave her to deprioritize paying off her credit card debt and focus all her energy on her wealth portfolio. She said, should I use my old teacher pension to pay off my credit card debt? But what about the interest it's costing me? It's such high interest, Gina. I think at the time she had about $42,000 of credit card debt. It just feels like the portfolio is growing so slowly in comparison to the interest that I'm paying, right? All very valid and rational thoughts. But during the mastermind, Geneva ended up building a retirement fund that is on track to generate $5,500 a month in passive income for her. She grew her portfolio by an additional $16,000, and then she paid off half of her debt. Okay, so she did pay off debt, just not before building wealth. She said, I'm so glad I listened to your coaching, Gina. If I withdrew my account to pay off that credit card, I spoke with them today for a different reason, and it would have ended up 40% in fees. I'd have ended up with like 12K, which is less than my lump sum I paid last month. Here's to feeling unbothered by credit card debt, trusting the process, and already almost done paying it off, right? Here's the other thing about the frantic, like, I need to pay off debt. We tend to make some less than ideal decisions when we're panicked about debt. So it's not to say we don't want to pay off debt. It's just to say we want to do the math and then decide what is mathematically the best move forward. 6 months after graduating out of the program, she ended up buying her first home as a breadwinner, as an entrepreneur breadwinner. After having lived on a boat for 7 years, they were living on a boat for 7 years. She paid off all $42,000 of her credit card debt, and then she turned around and paid her taxes in full. Okay. She sent me, I love this screenshot with the zero balance. She said, I couldn't have done this without you. I just clicked the button and paid off 42K in credit card debt this last year and have savings still. So again, it's not that debt shouldn't be paid off. It's that debt cannot be the number one priority. Focus less on paying off debt. Focus way more on building an income generating portfolio now. Okay. All right. Mistake number 3. I just need to earn more money first. I just need to earn more money first, Gina. I just need to earn more money first. Here's the thing. You have the money to invest right now. Okay. I have never met an entrepreneur. I've never met a person that I couldn't find money for. I'm like a bloodhound. I will sniff it out. Okay. Whether it's an old 401k or a teacher pension or RSUs or a random savings account that you have that's been sitting there and has no actual purpose, you're just leaving it there, or an inheritance that's still sitting in the bank, or overpaying on your debt, especially mortgages. I see a ton of people do extra payments to their mortgage. That is money that we could be using to build wealth, right? Budget leaks in your personal spending more than you're actually realizing, or profit leaks in your business that could be more owner's pay if you own a company. Okay. I know how to find money that you don't even know is on the table. Like I said, I'm a bloodhound. And the thing is, you can't afford for your money to be underutilized. We really can't. So this is a screenshot of my freedom calculator, which is a tool that I give all my clients. It's very fun. I'll walk you through it really quick, and then we're going to go through some examples. All right. So the way this calculator works is you put how old you are now and how old you will be when you want to use your money. You say what your current portfolio value is now and how much you can contribute each year. And then what it does is it calculates your balance with no further investment. So this basically calculates your balance by the time you're 35 if you didn't do this. And then on this side, it calculates your balance if you did do this. Okay. So over the course of 5 years, if you did a $25,000 one time investment and then put $100 a month on auto pay, your ROI would be $18,000 with zero work. Okay. So basically, for 5 years, I started with 25K. I put $100 a month. That means my total contributions are 31,000, but my end balance is 49. So over the course of 5 years, I made $18,000 that I didn't have to work for at all. Now let's up it. Let's make it 10 years instead of 5 years. Same idea, just $100 a month with a $25,000 starting balance. Now, after 10 years, my ROI is $50,000, right? $52,000 that I didn't work for that I earned. Okay, what about 20 years? Same scenario. I start with $25,000 and then I have $100 a month going in. Well, after 20 years, your portfolio will be worth over $265,000. You will have contributed 49, which means your total ROI is $216,000. All right. Now let's keep going. What about 35 years? So from ages 30 to 65, if I start with 25,000 and I just have $100 a month going in, my total ROI will be $1.1 million. It will, another way of saying this, which I love to say it this way, is you just bought $1 million portfolio, but it only cost you $67,000 over the course of 35 years. I don't know about you, but if someone told me I could buy $1 million for $67,000, that seems like a really good trade to me. But notice how, like, the longer the timeline, the bigger the ROI gets. This is why it's so important to not wait, to not be confused, or to wait until you know everything. It's so important to not wait until you're debt free, because the more time you wait, the more money you lose directly. All right. Okay. Okay, Gina, this is all great and dandy, but what if I only have a couple $100 to invest? Well, I want you to meet Ashley. When she joined Seven Figure Wealth, she was in a profit squeeze in her business. She had business and personal credit card debt that she wanted to pay off in the 5 figures, multiple 5 figures. She did not have an old 401k or a lump sum of money sitting around somewhere, and she was going through a very expensive divorce. Okay, so quadruple whammy all at once. She really struggled with seeing the value of prioritizing investing when she only had a couple $100 to invest. She just said, it's not enough. It's not going to make a big enough dent. It doesn't matter. But then she asked me one little baby question. She said, if I invested $30 instead of getting another drink at the bar, what would that be worth? So we did the math. She's 33 years old. By the time she's 65, if she just put $30 into the account and then never put another dime in, by the time she's 65, that $30 would be worth $756, which is a $726 ROI. Another way of saying that is a $756 cocktail. That $30 cocktail, it's actually $750, right? So her eyes lit up when we did that calculation. And then she goes, okay, well, what if I did that and I saved $250 staying at a cheaper hotel for my upcoming trip? So we did, okay, $30 plus $280 investment. You're 33 years old. If you left it until you're 65, that would be over $7,000. So that $280 investment turns into $7,000. Again, is this enough to retire and live your life? No, but it puts every expense into context, right? She said, I got to decide, is this $30 cocktail worth it for me, or can I get a soda and bitters instead? I can still have a good time with my friends, and I was still investing, and I just decided that I don't need a $30 cocktail. It's a good way to feel like I was doing it all. Now, her portfolio has generated an extra $724. And even if she stopped contributing, it will grow to over 6 figures, all with zero work. Okay. So she has a portfolio worth $5,442 right now as of this screenshot from last year. And it has grown $724 passively. So even with a small dollar amount, you're still making out in the end. Even if she stops contributing, she'll still have over six figures by the time she's 65. And is that a ton of money for a retiree? No. But you know what it's more than? It's more than zero. It's 100% more than zero. So optimizing the current money you make will have will make you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in the long run, even with small tweaks. Okay. So remembering your time in the stock market is way, way, way more valuable than how much you can invest right now. Okay. So to recap, the three mistakes: you never start because you don't know what you don't know. You overemphasize the importance of debt, and you tell yourself you need to earn more money first. And I could add a fourth one here, which is you think that real estate is the way, real estate is passive income. And I could go on a whole diatribe about that as we were saying in the beginning. But that is our little recap. So I'm going to open it up. I like to spend a lot of time on Q&A and leave a lot of space for that. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen and open up for any questions, any coaching, anything about building wealth. And we could also talk about real estate if we wanted to. I just don't have it in my slides, but I definitely have it in my brain. I'm not sure how the chat works. If people
Right.
post,
Yes, I don't have anything in the chat yet, but I did have someone email me and hoping you could or see
yeah,
your thoughts on the thing.
absolutely.
She is thinking about leaving medicine, so she's kind of wondering, like, in the meantime, on her
Mhm.
way to entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
what does it look like to get health insurance?
Oh yeah, a couple different things. So I'm not a great person to ask because I'm on my husband's insurance. He works for a company, so we do that. But there's a couple options that are really good. First things first, Cobra is available if they're in the United States. Cobra is kind of an in between health insurance that I think is like legally required by
Mhm.
employers. Where when you leave your job, you can go on Cobra, which means you basically stay on the same insurance you were on, but now you have to pay out of pocket for the whole policy. Whereas before, maybe your employer covered it, or maybe your employer covered a portion of it. I think Cobra can last, I can double check this, up to 36 months, I'm pretty sure, or 18 months. How long does Cobra last? But it's a substantial amount of time. Okay, for job loss or reduction in hours, 18 months. For divorce or legal separation, 36 months. For death of covered employee, 36. So probably more than 18, right? If you were to leave by your own volition. Then after 18 months, so that gives you a year and a bit,
Mhm.
you can go on your state's local, or not your state's local, your state's healthcare marketplace, and basically you'll just have to buy your own insurance through the Affordable Care Act in your state. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have
Um,
an idea of what the range is for
I
Cobra,
mean,
just general? I know that's like maybe an impossible question.
it's really an impossible question. It depends on how many people are on your plan. It depends on the level of
Mhm.
care and the level of coverage you have, right? Like there are very cheap plans that cover basically nothing. Except for maybe like some dire situations, and then there's more expensive plans, and then again it depends on if you have children, if you have other dependents on your plan. But I will say, like, I had a friend who went on Cobra. She's single, a single woman, so a single policy. She had a decently medium policy, and she was paying about $700 a month by the time she went on Cobra. Um, I would I would budget for more than you think.
Mhm.
It's expensive.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Not as expensive as staying in a job you hate, though. So I want to say like $700 to get out of a job you hate. Worth it to me. But
Yeah.
before I have a list of questions people emailed, but if any, I would want to take a moment. If anyone wants to raise your hand and come on screen or wants to talk with your video off, I want to give you guys a chance first.
Yeah.
This was so good, by the way, while they're thinking about it. This
Good.
was so good.
I have more I can say. And that's why I left it shorter so that we have
Okay.
time to unpack anything.
Yes. So something a lot of our folks, our physician moms are looking at is paying for college.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
Are you ready for my hot
Tell
take?
me. Yes, tell me.
If you're not on track for retirement, you can't afford to pay for college. period. And you shouldn't pay for college, period. Because what's going to end up happening, let's just follow that line of thinking down all the way down, right? You're not on track for retirement, you pay for your kids' college, you don't make up the extra time. You either forcibly are forced to retire like my dad or decide to retire, you don't have enough money to live, you will be a burden on your adult children. And I can guarantee you that your adult children will be way more thankful that they don't have to financially care for you than they will care about having student loan debt. I've
Okay.
seen it
Yeah. Yeah.
firsthand.
Mhm.
So like the absolute burden of having a parent who's not financially stable is so much more detrimental than the burden of having student loans. Period.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the happy side. Let me pull up my calculator actually really quick. Um, Now let's say you are on track for retirement, and let's come over here. So, and it depends on how old your kid is, but let's say your kid is 5 and they're going to need the money by the time they're 18. I'm going to put this at 10.13. What we can do is invest your kid's college fund in the market so that it grows and we can capitalize on that passive income to help pay for college, right? There's in the United States a really very common plan is called a 529 plan. It's a tax advantage college or education savings plan for your children. You can only set them up for immediate family members, I think. Actually, I'm not sure about that. Anyways, 529 plan, there's a tax advantage. So what we would do is we would calculate, okay, let's say I have an extra, actually, let's say I have zero extra dollars right now, but I could put $250 a month towards my kids' education until they're 18. That would mean by the time your kid is 18, they would have about $80,000 in that 529 plan, assuming you invest it in the market. So, $3,000 a year for, is that 12 years? Is that 13 years? Wow. I'm really bad at mental math, which is ironic. You would have contributed just under 40K, but your kids' portfolio will be worth 80, right? Now, I don't know about you, and I don't know about what colleges your kids are going to, but barely any school for 4 years is going to cost 80K. Like we're looking at more like 150 to $250,000 at this point. So we might need to up it. You can consider upping it every year. I'm going to show you the bowels of this spreadsheet. Do not get intimidated, but this is basically showing 250 a year. Let's say like every year we upped it by $50
Mhm.
instead. 24, so that would be 350. We kind of just like increase with inflation. Now we're starting to get somewhere, right? So
Mhm.
what I would do is start with what you can afford. And then if you can increase it, increase it. The other way to do this, so this is if you're funding it monthly. The other way to do this is funding it at once. If you have a lot of cash on hand right now, we could ask ourselves, how much money do I need to dump in today for it to just passively grow by the time they're 18? So I might put like $40,000. If I just put 40,000 today and didn't contribute anything else ever again, it would be about 148,000 by the time my kid is 18.
Mhm.
Now, if your kid's 15, those numbers drastically change.
Mhm.
So the
Yes.
earlier you start this, the better. The earlier you start this, the cheaper. It can be very cheap to send your kid to school if you start when they're a baby. It can
Mhm.
be very expensive if you start when they're already in high school. But again, let's say you have this $40,000 and let's say you're 48 and you have 40,000 and let's say you have 158,000 in retirement right now and you're not contributing, you are not on track. That extra 40,000 in your retirement instead could put you on track for a seven-figure retirement. So you also have to balance it with, if I retire with that only $800,000, I don't like 800,000 is really not a lot. Actually, let's go back to the spreadsheet really quick. $800,000 by the time I'm 65, that's equivalent to a $35,000 a year passive income salary. So another way of saying
Mhm.
this is if I have 877,000, I can take $35,000 out every year to live off of it and I'll never run out of money. This is called the 4% rule. So another way of saying that is $2,900 a month. I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone who can survive off $2,900 a month. And we can
Mhm.
factor in Social Security if you think that by the time you're 65, that will still exist, which, it's up for debate. But this is what I say. This is what I mean when I say you will, in this scenario, you will be a burden on your adult children.
Yes. Okay, that's so good. One other thing before we're going to over to the chat. Mary also says she has a 529.
So good,
Amazing.
Mary. Love
Mary,
it.
you are so good. Is this okay? You said a sentence. You said, um, it's about the kids taking loans.
Yeah.
So, for example, our because of where we are in our income, our daughter didn't qualify for any loans.
Any loans whatsoever or
Zero.
any federal student aid, because that's different.
That's interesting. I don't even know that. I'm not even sure the
Because
answer to that.
loans are not federal student aid is income dependent, but
Mhm.
I could get a private loan from anyone.
Okay.
Yeah. And even if
Look
it's
at that.
expensive, here's the other thing to consider is like, even if it's expensive in terms of interest, is it more or less expensive than not
Hmm.
having money
Okay.
for you to retire? And then this is also based off of the best case scenario that you're able bodied to continue to be able to keep working.
Yeah.
It's scary shit. Can I
I'm
swear?
glad we're
Sorry.
having, yes, you can. I'm glad we're having this discussion. Emily said, thank you for this great
Yeah.
presentation. What do you recommend is the smallest next step to gaining financial literacy for someone who's just starting out?
Okay, Emily, such a good question.
Isn't that good?
The big thing to consider with financial literacy, especially when we're talking about like the stock market and investing and your passive income portfolio and all these words, is like this is actually the strategy is actually very simple, Emily. It's so simple. Investing is simple, growing wealth is simple. It's just all the words are new. It's like learning a new language, right? So I don't want you to have the thought, oh my God, this all sounds super scary. I just want you to have the thought, Gina's telling me it's simple, but I just need to learn the words, right? You need to learn the glossary of terms. There's a really one book I recommend. I'm not a big book recommender, but if you like books, it's let me look it up. Why can't I remember? I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I'll grab his website right there. Ramit is a author, speaker. He has a podcast that's very good as well. And his book, he published it like over 15 years ago, I think at this point, but it's just so simple and it does what I just said. It just teaches you the language. And that's what I would say. Now, in addition, it depends, Emily, like what's going on with you in your life, but I always recommend everybody open a taxable brokerage. A taxable brokerage is just an investing account that has no laws lommed onto it, right? Unlike retirement accounts where there's minimums and maximums, and there's like times that you can take money out and times you can't take money out. There's a lot of laws surrounding retirement accounts or 529s or whatever. A taxable brokerage is like a savings account. You can put as much money in as you want and you can take it out whenever you want. I recommend opening one. I recommend everyone have one anyways and getting an account open. Like literally just start there because on your way to getting the account open, you're going to have a lot of words that you don't know what they mean. And I want you to almost be like a little student and write those words down and look up their definitions and then move on to the next step. I highly, highly recommend, and I am not paid to say this, and I wish I was.
Mm.
I highly recommend Vanguard as your broker, if you're in the United States at least, as a brokerage firm because they have exceptional customer support and they're the cheap, like one of the industry standard cheapest in the industry. And when it comes to investing in the market, fees really matter. Actually, speaking of fees really matter, can I do a
Do it.
quick little
Yes.
demonstration? Let me show you why fees really matter. So let's say I'm 48, I have 158,000, and let's say I'm putting like 10,000 a year. Cool. Yeah. So if I were to invest this on my own, this could reasonably grow to 1.3 million by the time I'm 65. Now, a lot of times I speak with people who have financial advisors and they're like, the advisor, it's not that much. It's like 1.5%. It's a really cheap fee. What we have to realize is that if we subtract 1.5%, look at that, the 1.3 million, that 1.5% is actually $300,000.
Wow.
$300,000. And I always ask my clients, Are they giving you $300,000 of value? And the answer is always no. It's not to say like I've worked with financial advisors. I have a very clear like system on when to work with them and when not to. Um, but Vanguard's fees for their investments are like 0.04%. So we
Wow.
really want the
Mhm.
lowest fees possible, right? Actually, let's go back. Sorry, I'm flipping back and
This is
forth.
great. Yeah.
So if we go 1.5, I just lost 300,000, right? But if I'm going to pay the standard 1.04% that Vanguard charges, I go one. What is that? How much did I lose? Actually, let me do this. Oops. So I went from 1,326,000 to so less than $10,000. One
Oh,
million three hundred eighteen
huge
thousand.
difference. Wow.
So like I cannot
Mm.
stress how important low fees are. So I always recommend Vanguard because they have very, very robust low fee structure. They're actually a co-op. Their business model is a co-op. So when you invest in Vanguard, you're a co-op member. So the incentive structure of the business model is designed to drive fees down, which I
Mm.
think is great from a
Mhm.
structural perspective. And they're not publicly traded, so they're not
Mm.
incentivized to show profit. Um,
Emily, I also want to say, as being on Gina Knox's email list, and I put in her contact information in terms of like what are next steps. I would definitely look at that because, as you can see,
oh,
Gina's definitely an expert, and she makes it fun and interesting and safe. Gina, could you comment on anything about the presidential? A lot of people have a lot of angst in this room
yeah.
about, of course, rightly so, about the
Yeah.
presidential election. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I can talk about that 100%. So, what we have to realize, right? The stock market is just businesses. So, if you've ever run a business or ever worked for a business and you ever got to see the number side, which Christine, I know you do because you run your own business, you should know that business is very inconsistent, right? Every month we make a different amount of money and every month we spend a different amount of money. The stock market is just businesses at scale. So, it's going to be very inconsistent in the short term. If Apple misses their quarterly goal, their stock is going to dip. But if they overshoot it, it's going to go up, right? Now, why am I talking about this? How does this relate to the presidential election? The president and the president's policies have influence on businesses, right? In some capacity or another. And I would venture to say every president and every economic situation. So I want you to think about like the dot-com boom, the 2008 housing crisis, March 2020, right? Every economic situation that we have at hand benefits certain businesses and is hurts others. Every single one. Now, there are times when generally more businesses are doing well and generally more businesses are suffering. And we've seen that. 2008 was a good example. More businesses were suffering, the stock market went down. And then they slowly got back up and the stock market went back up. But I say this to say what we have to think about is the president doesn't have power over the stock market. The president has powers over the laws and kind of the culture that impact businesses. I work with a lot of Canadian businesses. So we're seeing a lot of the tariff situation playing out and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of discontent and fear. And I say this to say that it's not that the president can't affect the stock market, it can. But also, but also, when we're looking at the stock market, we're looking in the long term, not the short term. I'm going to share with you something.
Hmm.
So this is, let's do year to date because this is when the president started what, the 20th, right? So year to date, the stock market is up 2.48%. Okay, so that means it's grown by 2.48% year to date. I could do 1 month. In the last 1 month, it's down 1.43%, right? But
Hmm.
if I look in the 6 month timeline, it's up 7% over the last 6 months. Year to date, we're up 2.49%. 1 year, 5 years, maximum timeline. I want you to look at this maximum timeline for a minute. I want you, if you couldn't see these dates down here, would you
Hmm.
even know where 2008 was on this graph?
No,
And
no.
2008 was like probably for most of us, the biggest economic recession of our lifetimes.
Mm.
And you
Hmm.
can barely even see it.
Interesting.
Look at
Wow.
2000. Look at the dot com boom. Look at March 2020. It was a blip.
Hmm.
2022 kind of sucked because all the inflation was catching up with us and the market
Hmm.
really hurt. And it's not to say that the current president will result in a good economic situation or a bad one. Um, it is to say that there will be a crash because there always will be a crash.
Hmm.
I don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when it's going to happen. But what I do know is, regardless of when or where there's a crash, if I wait to invest, I am losing out
Hmm.
fundamentally. Let's look at here. Let's say it was 2006 and I'm like, "Oh, I think there's going to be a crash. I'm going to wait to invest my money until the dip," right? First of all, I would never know when to wait till. But the second of all, if I wait, 2, 3 years, I'm missing out on these little gains. And by the time we get up to, 10 years later,
Hmm.
you could draw a straight line over this.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Okay.
So I care a lot about politics in my personal life.
Mhm.
I care a lot about especially how politics affect small businesses because I work with small businesses every single day. I have a lot of thoughts. But when it comes to the stock market, my thought is I cannot let that influence my strategy because if I let that influence my strategy, I will wait. And if I wait, I will lose. Period. So that's my thoughts.
Wow. Oh my gosh, fantastic. We are at 53. Are you, I know I wasn't sure if you wanted to stop at 45 or at the top of the hour. What's
Oh,
your preference?
I had this time booked for the full hour.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I
So,
did want to
mhm,
say one other thing actually
mhm,
about the president and the market. What the graph I just showed you was US only. You can invest in international companies. I'm invested in something
mhm,
called the Total World Stock Market Index Fund. It's super boring. It's just an index fund that invests in every publicly traded company on earth. So even if the US economy or what's happening with US and Canada or US and Mexico is weird right now, maybe Japan is doing great. And guess what? I'm invested in those companies too. See, the
mhm,
more diverse you are
mhm.
geographically, industry, number of companies, the more insulated you are from any major threat. Yeah,
Wow. I'm learning so much today.
it's a lot.
And then who do you work with?
Who do I work with in
Mhm.
terms of what?
Like, we, in terms of, um, do you work like people who aren't like some people in this room don't consider themselves business owners.
Mhm.
Many physicians do have something outside of business outside of. Many physicians on this call also like their own practice. So, and then we have some that don't have that are just primarily in their physician job. Do you work with individuals about
Oh,
what?
who do I work with?
Mhm.
I thought
Yeah.
you meant like, who am I hiring?
Oh no.
I
Like
misunderstood the
clients.
question. Yes, yes, yes. Who do I work with? So I have two programs. I have Small Business Money School,
Mhm.
which is really focused on business owners who want to get the business finances straight. And by the way, if you're a physician and you own your practice, you're a small business owner.
Good point.
Even
Here.
if you're in a partnership, right? If
Yeah.
you get a K1 on your taxes, you're a business owner. So I work with business owners on their business
Mhm.
side because, especially for business owners who their business is their primary income, if the business isn't solid, you're never going to be solid because, like, that just can't,
Mhm.
it doesn't work. So we do that. And then I have my program, Seven Figure Wealth, that touches on everything that we touched on today. All the case studies you saw were from Seven Figure Wealth clients. I still do focus on entrepreneurs there, but I have a lot more side hustlers, people who want to become business owners. I have people who I even have like stay-at-home moms who got a huge settlement and want to like figure out what to do with it. I have people who are
Okay.
full W-2 employees. Seven Figure Wealth is way more on the personal finance side of things. So it's way more open in terms of who joins. The question really is, do you have money that we need to start optimizing to build a portfolio? And are you behind? And do you even know, like, do you need help getting started? That's what we do in Seven Figure Wealth. So, yeah, regardless of if you own your own company or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
because I would want to just for everyone to be clear about your offers, like
Yeah.
which one would be a better match for them, what it looks like to
Yeah.
work with you in terms of what do
Yeah.
the containers look like.
If you want to build wealth, seven figure wealth is a better match. If you are like really struggling in the business side of your finances, small business money school is a better match. I don't have a do this one first, then do this one second. There's
Okay.
no order. And I also actually have a lot of clients who do both at the same time so that we cover business over here, personal over here, and we like get both really solid at
Mhm.
once. But I would say if you're interested in what we talked about today, seven figure wealth is the better match. We are opening enrollment in late April, early May. So not for a while. We're still finishing out our last cohort, but like Christina said, get on my email list and you will know when we're opening it.
And there's so much value in it too. So I've
So
definitely
good.
learned a lot about it. In our last few minutes, could you talk? I know real estate is also a big interest with
Yeah.
physicians right now. Could you share your thoughts about it with
Yeah,
us?
absolutely. Real estate can be a huge wealth builder, just like business can be a huge wealth builder. But real estate's a business, not an income source. Real estate is a business
Mm.
model. So, what you have to decide is, am I interested in being the CEO of a real estate business? If the answer to that is like a full body, oh, no, don't do it. It is work, it is not passive. Even if you have an investment, not an investment, a management company, right?
Mhm.
You have to think about it like it really is a business. You have an offering, you have real estate, you have customers, you have
Mhm.
payments, you have taxes, you have maintenance, you have expenses, you have all of the bookkeeping. It's a full blown business. Some people are better at it than others. And usually the people who are better at it are the ones who actually want to be the CEO of a real estate company. And there are different ways to invest. I do know some people who are passive real estate investors where they give other people their money to go buy places.
Mhm.
And then,
Mhm.
right, you're just not going to make as much return on that money because you're not doing it. So you're
Yeah.
sharing profit at that point. If you are interested in being the CEO of a real estate company, by all means, it can be very lucrative, but it's also a hyper localized market. There's no like universal truth. It's hyper localized and it's higher in risk. So remember what I was saying about the president and even the country. I'm invested in every country across the globe because the more diverse I am, the less the risk is, because if one of those companies goes bankrupt, I'm still Gucci. Well, if you own a home, that's one asset. If anything wrong happens with that one asset, a larger proportion of your wealth is tied up in an asset that may be underwater. So we don't have as much diversification and safety. Again, not a bad thing. Higher risk means higher reward potential, but also higher loss potential.
Mm.
And there are things out of your control. I have a client who has a full wealth portfolio, but she also has two homes in Tampa, Florida. And she was making out really well on them. She was really profitable. And then her homeowner's insurance went from like $150 a month to like $900 a month.
Wow.
And there's no recourse whatsoever. There's no other option. You can't not have homeowners insurance. So all of a sudden, even though she's charging premium pricing for her premium real estate,
Mhm.
she went from being profitable to being unprofitable in the matter of months. And there's nothing she can do about it. So she could decide, I'm going to keep this house and just bank on the appreciation of the asset itself, or I can sell. And if I
Wow.
decide to bank on the appreciation of the asset itself, then I have to bankroll it until I decide to sell because I'm underwater and I can't charge more because I've kind of hit the market cap for what is the going rate for this thing. So just know like it's not a guaranteed wealth builder, it's a risk. And a lot of people will come and say, I bought my home for 200,000. I sold it for a million because I bought it in the Bay Area in the 80s. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Just because you bought it for 200K and sold it for a million doesn't mean you profited 800K. Um, there's property taxes. That's an expense you'll
Mm.
never get back. That's not equity building. There's interest.
Mm.
There's maintenance. There's insurance. There's a ton
Mhm.
of line items. If you own a home, you know this, right?
Mhm.
About your
Right,
own
right.
primary residence. There's a ton, all of those items eat into your overall profit. And by the
Mhm.
end, if you do the math, usually for single family homes, the profit does not outweigh the market in terms
What
of the capital you put into it.
Last question. What are you going to
Yeah.
recommend for the client who has those two Tampa homes?
I recommended, I gave her the two approaches. I said, listen, you can float it if you think that this is going to be like if the equity, if the growth in the market in terms of like
Mhm.
what you could sell it for in 10 years is going to be better. We kind of played around with what scenarios there might be, or you could sell it and cut your losses. But really what the approach I gave with her and the approach I give with all my clients is, what do you want to do?
So good.
Right. And she
Yeah.
went, I don't want to be in Florida anymore. And I said, then sell the house. Because with real estate, because it's so much work and because there's so much risk, you really have to want to do it.
Mhm,
And if
mhm.
you don't want to do it, you're going to feel resentful and it's going to be
Right.
another job that you have to do
Yeah.
that you don't like. And so I said, I think you should sell it from that perspective. I
Mhm,
never tell my clients what to do or not do.
mhm,
It's your money. But I said, like, feel free to sell, like, you don't have to hold
mhm.
on to it because you're being smart. Like, that's not the lens through which we make real estate decisions, especially because she only had, two doors. It wasn't like 1,000 units.
This is why you're my favorite money person because it's so easy to be like, well, this is what I think because of this and this and this versus, and then you miss the whole chance of what does this person actually want?
Yeah.
So this is why you're my favorite person. Everyone
Oh,
in the room, I put in and the replays too, we will put in contact information for Gina Knox. Get on her email list,
yeah.
follow her. You will make millions by just doing this, working with her. Thank you so much, Gina. Anything
Truly.
else you want to say as we close out?
Just, I know it's like a lot, but remember the actual core strategy is very simple. We're just, at least what I do, what I teach is just investing in low cost index funds. So really all you got to do is open an account and move some money in and then pick an investment. It's all the other stuff around it that can be really overwhelming. And no, especially like, I don't know if your audience is primarily women, but
Yes.
like, give yourself some grace. We just got the right to our own bank accounts in like the 60s. Okay. This is new for us.
Mhm.
Never had to do this before. And even though the strategy isn't complex, it's made to be complex by the gatekeepers.
Mm,
Especially if we
so
think
good
about
to
like
know.
financial advisors, remember the
Yes.
numbers I showed you? Doesn't it stand to reason that they would want you to feel confused?
Yes.
There,
Yes.
there's a whole industry benefiting off of your confusion. So I implore you to not let that scare you away and instead open the door of curiosity about if I could just learn this myself, I could save $300,000. And it's really not that complicated. They're just trying to keep me out.
That's so good. It's so good. Yeah. I met with the financial person. I just felt so gross. This guy felt so gross afterwards. And I love how you make it seem accessible and fun and empowering and like such a feminist thing to do. I love that.
It is a very feminist
Yeah,
thing to do.
it is. It's enormous. Thank you so much, Gina. We'll put this on the podcast and we really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thank you. All
Bye,
right, take it easy, guys.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.